welcome to another week of #askrobco with James Wild. Hope you're all well, hope you're having a good week, hope you loved the heatwave weekend and you got out and about and enjoyed the incredible weather. James, welcome. Another week, lots of sporting activity, lots happening, Freedom Day, etc. What's going on out there?
Wow, yeah, no, thank you, Rob. What a weekend. It actually fell, the heat wave lasted the duration of the weekend, which was excellent. And obviously Freedom Day this Monday, really happy to be back in the office. Today we're taking a bit of refuge from the heat wave under the nice air conditioning. I was feeling very fresh on Monday. I know a lot of others weren't. There was a lot of nightclubs here in London were opening 12 a.m. Monday morning. I don't think you were there, Rob, as well. But obviously it's that marks the start of some of the easing of restrictions. And it's obviously one of the sectors which hasn't been allowed to open at all since the initial March 2020 lockdown. So some of the first sort of buds and sort of sparks that life is starting to return to some normality.
Yeah, I mean, amazing sporting weekend. I don't know how many of the viewers got to see, whether it was the golf or the cricket. Football's obviously finished, there's rugby, Challenge Cup final, Silverstone, 140,000 people, James, watching the Grand Prix. That was amazing. Summer is fully on board and fully started.
Yeah, no, well done to Sir Lewis Hamilton as it is now, and he's domestic Grand Prix. It's a record 8th time, phenomenal. However, I just was going to say how appalling it was that he suffered some of the racial abuse online after the race. And, we obviously, after the Euros final, some of our England players also suffered some of the racial abuse. And we just wanted to say how appalling we thought it was, and that some of the social media operators aren't quite doing enough at present to try and eradicate that. And also in terms of the punishments for those culprits should also be far more tougher.
Absolutely, very disappointing. Very much hope that it can just be an education and learning, and actually some positive change it comes from it. If a bad situation is going to happen, the best you can hope is that it creates at least positive change, and that's the opportunity that presents itself with hopefully some good education around the subject matter. Okay, so let's move on to the weekly data. What have we got going on for everyone this week? Last week we literally fell off a cliff with our sales numbers as expected, and this week that trend has continued. We've got very, very, very low sales numbers in the 50s this week, backed on from 79 last week. And remember, we were at near on decade historical highs the previous few weeks at 450 plus. So we've gone extremely high with sales as the stamp duty window was about to close, and we have literally, as is normal, so I don't want anyone to overly worry, normally when you have such an exceptional circumstance like a window, then normally the weeks afterwards you do see very low level of activity. It's completely normal. So what are your views on that and the other evidence this week and the other data, James?
Yeah, thank you, Rob. As we brought you last week, the sales have dramatically fallen in the last 2 weeks. 79, you say, last week, 58 this week. And what I would say is the data that we bring, it's week by week and it's very granular. So in terms of these specific weeks, most data is reported monthly and it's also seasonally smooth. So you don't quite get these peaks and troughs of data like we've been bringing in the last few weeks. I mean, the 2 weeks before the end of the stamp duty threshold ending and the big savings for buyers, those 2 weeks of data were phenomenal. They were record highs. We'd never seen data like that since these records began around in the last 10 years. So we've had 2 fairly low weeks of transaction volumes. The market is still adjusting to these more normal stamp duty land tax costs.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely accelerated deals which were in the pipeline, which were happening. So all the deals have maybe just moved those couple of weeks forward with a slight lull as we're in now. And I think it'll be quite a slow, gradual return to the sales figures as we just move through the summer.
I do think, I mean, as you mentioned, yeah, there are reasonably good instruction levels coming on at the moment, and I do believe that you're going to see a more normalised market returning. I think the big question is, and it's the question that everyone on this show has been asking for about a year now since the announcement of the stamp duty window was introduced, is what's going to happen after. And I think now is the moment of truth. I appreciate that we still have, to a degree, the very lower end of the stamp duty in place for another quarter. And we also have the furlough scheme petering out. But we are really going to, in the next 2 quarters, quarter 3, quarter 4 of 2021, we're really going to find out how robust both the economy is, but more importantly for this show and the people watching, how the property market is going to hold up without those 2 things.
Definitely, Rob. Like you say, we've had Freedom Day this week on Monday, and we've also got some quite sort of major changes. Obviously, stamp duty, those £2,500 savings up until the end of September, still for buyers to make sort of slightly marginal savings. Also in September, we've got the furlough scheme, which ends. And obviously we've got interest rates at a record low, and at some stage these will have to increase. So when that happens, that could be towards the end of this year or possibly quarter 1 2022. It's also going to be interesting to monitor how the unemployment rates here in the UK, whether they slightly spike after the September furlough scheme ends. So the economy is still fairly delicately balanced with some government intervention in terms of propping up the economy in certain sectors.
Brilliant. What else have you got for us, James, this week?
In terms of this week, it's been, obviously we said Freedom Day Monday. Boris Johnson currently isolating in his Buckinghamshire residence of Chequers. The remainder of the country is suffering somewhat, has been coined pingdemic. Many stores in Iceland have had to shut some branches. And the shortage of workers with a lot of people getting pinged on the NHS app. This has presented some supply chain issues, and there has been some commentary this could cause some food shortages in the coming months with the shortage of both delivery drivers and those long-haul drivers, a lot of which have returned to Europe from the UK. Massive shortages there, and it's just we're going to have to closely monitor what impact that has on the economy. It's going to affect all of the supply chain. We think from delivery of perishable goods to consumables to other high street stores making deliveries to individuals. So that's something we're going to have to monitor, and hopefully it doesn't create any sort of bottlenecks in any of the systems where there's particular shortages in any sectors.
Yeah, facing a real challenge there in all service industries, but even the wider economy where the pingdemic is really causing a challenge. Now, I believe isolation in a month is going to be removed, so we've only got another 3 or 4 weeks of that, and hopefully in that period we'll see the peak of cases, we very much hope, of this wave. So maybe the reduction of cases and the release of the isolation period hopefully will allow for smoother, calmer waters as we finish off the summer and move into the autumn.
Hopefully, yeah, obviously we had around 50,000 cases earlier this week, but we've now got the heat wave, which obviously last year did see a slight drop-off in the case numbers. Whether that has any impact this year, like you say, Rob, we'll have to wait and see. However, moving back to property, Rightmove have released an article this year just reporting that they've seen the busiest first half of the year that they've ever recorded in terms of the properties they brought onto the market and transactions, with buyer demand pushing the average price of property coming onto the market for record highs for a fourth consecutive month. Obviously, that's their June data. As we were bringing you here, it was live data. The market was extremely hot. We had record transactions. Stock levels weren't at their peak. They were about 300 per week here, which nationally we were seeing a similar subdued levels of instructions. Buyers had slightly less choice on what they could, what their choice of property was if they had a buyer requirements.
I think on that point, and it's the one thing that I really have loved about doing the show for over a year now, is that what we're bringing on a weekly basis is so live and instant and happening, on the ground, and what we're seeing as a valuation practice and property experts, that everything else that gets reported in the mainstream media or through other sources is always tracking quite far back in terms of the data and playing catch up. And I think from the lenders and the banks and the brokers and the industry watching every week and giving us the feedback, I think that's the key point of these snapshot updates that we're providing. They're just so relevant and live, and I think that's the biggest change that we've seen during COVID, is that the world is moving fast, data, intel, specialist knowledge is moving fast, and the need for us, especially within this platform, to serve the marketplace and provide it every week, it has been substantiated, and it's allowing for knowledge, best practice to be shared and fast track that through into the marketplace. I think that's the real thing that we're seeing from that. Yes, it's great when the headline data is brought to our attention and shared with the market, and I think it's even greater when it confirms some of the key points that we would have been sharing a month or 2 months ago.
Definitely. And Rightmove has also predicted that the number of completed sales will be their highest ever in a single month when June's data was released by the Her Majesty's Land Registry. And this also tallies with what the live data we're bringing here in London. The 2 weeks at the end of June were off the scale here in London. And Rightmove obviously have a wealth of data throughout the country nationally, and they're obviously reporting similar trends. So we'll have to monitor that in a couple of months' time when the Her Majesty's Land Registry data is released, and whether June was the most active month ever in terms of transaction volumes.
Great. What else have you got to close out this week? What other news is there?
Well, in terms of, again, house prices, Rob, it's been such a topical thing that we've been talking about. In terms of the district in the UK which has seen the highest annualised growth over the last 12 months has been the northwest of England, with pricing up about 15% up to the month of May 2021. And I'd comment further here that is likely to increase once June's figures are also fed in to that, with obviously, like we say, there's the lag on the land registry data which comes out. And I think there's going to be a lot of people which are reporting this when this data's out in a couple of months' time. But as we're bringing the live data for July, we can report too that it is a slightly cooling market which is stabilising as it stands. Buyers are just adjusting to the slightly higher stamp duty purchasers' costs. And we haven't seen any movement on pricing yet, but that's going to be an interesting one to monitor in the coming couple of months as we close out the summer.
Great. Anything else?
Yeah, in terms of high street news, the retailer HMV is meant to be coming back to the high street, set to open 10 new stores. This would be an interesting move for them in terms of great to see them back on the high street. It was one of the sort of go-to shops, sort of Virgin and HMV. It's an interesting one. It comes after Sainsbury's announced earlier this month that they're actually ceasing to stop selling CDs and DVDs in their stores. Whether a lot of high street stores now it won't be a case of what they're selling. It might be more focused on an experience possibly and driving their online marketplace. So it'll be interesting to see what strategies various high street stores have to try to gain more market share and ultimately lift their sales revenues there. Just lastly, also the video conferencing firm Zoom has taken over Five9, which is a cloud-based call operator. The deal's worth a staggering $14.7 billion, which obviously Zoom as a company still feels very confident in terms of agile working. It's to some degree is going to continue. Very likely to be to the same degree we've seen for the last 16 months or so. But I think it could play a role in how internally companies communicate, but also external calls to clients. And ultimately, Rob, like you say, there's various environmental issues with overseas business travel. It could see less business travel, more global meetings happening on Zoom. So that's an interesting one that they've obviously sought to more establish themselves in the market and obviously serve how businesses and how are communicating with one another and also both their internal communications.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many areas there where we need to do app specials on the show. One would be the new hybrid way of working, and as time goes by, let's see how that plays out. Service offices is a real specialist area, which I'm really, really excited to see how that one moves. And then we've got the high street and a retail, which we need to do a high street retail special, along with the super prime and the new build as well. So let's make sure that we get those shows out and that data out moving forward. Just want to say a big thanks to you, the audience. We've got great numbers going through our platform, both YouTube, the podcast, and all of the socials. Everyone is following #askrobco. It's brilliant to be able to serve the property community in any way, shape, or form, whether you're in banking or lending or finance side, or whether you're in sales or agency, or whether you're a graduate or APC or a surveyor. We are here for you. This is what the platform is for. Keep watching, keep sharing, and really appreciate your support. And we will see you same time, same place next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Take care. Thanks, James.
Thanks very much, everyone.